Motivation is the perfect scam that is designed to keep you broke. The reality is that there's so many people out there watching the David Goggins videos, waiting to feel the perfect surge of energy to sit down and finally get to work. And the truth behind it is that if I waited to feel motivated after working my 9 to 5 and feeding my kids and putting them to bed, if I felt motivated and I waited till then to finally get to work, I would literally never work on my business. You have to act in defiance of your feelings. And part of adulthood is understanding that emotions isn't controlling the things you do and the decisions you make in life. Because adulthood is much larger than simply walking according to feelings. Adulthood requires and demands from you to walk according to what you want to do and the logic behind what you want to do and walking wisely and making wise decisions. Because if you walk in emotions, you're consistently going to fall and fail. And that is one of the reasons why so many adults struggle in their life. But specifically when it comes to business, it is why many adults suffer and fail with their business, because when they don't feel motivated, when they don't feel like David Goggins apparently feels every single day of his life, then they begin, or better said, how they think David Goggins feels every single day of his life. When you walk thinking and feeling like you need to be motivated to succeed in your business, then you are going to fail, because the truth is that most of the times you're not going to be motivated. The truth is that before I made this video, I wasn't very motivated. I didn't want to sit down and record videos, and I didn't want to sit down and do this because of the fact that I'd rather be doing other things. I'd rather be lazy. And although my nature can be that way and my feelings could be lazy, the reality is that my body must understand that I am going to show up, that I am going to be disciplined no matter what. And there is a huge difference between being disciplined, between grinding versus being motivated. I'm not always motivated to show up at the gym, but sometimes I gotta show up anyways. And sometimes, yes, I'm hearing David Goggins in the middle of it because it helps me feel motivated, because it sucks to go through a workout unmotivated. It sucks to do the things you don't want to do when you're not motivated, but it isn't the reason I'm there. David Goggins' motivation isn't the reason I'm there. Although it helps, it is not the reason I'm there. I'm there because I need to and want to succeed no matter what. One of the things that people need to understand is that action creates motivation, not the other way around. Action creates motivation. Motivation doesn't come first. Action comes first. Once you start typing, once you start selling, the energy follows. Once you start lifting the weights, the energy follows. And that is most of the times the case. But even further so, if the energy doesn't follow, the moment you start taking action, what you'll begin to notice is that when you see results, the motivation will definitely follow. But the only way you see results is not by having motivation first, it is by taking action. It is by you showing up and doing what you need to do time after time after time that will produce motivation, either because of the fact that you're actively doing it, or because of the fact that when you see the results, it motivates you to go further. It motivates you to continue. So don't wait for motivation to take action. Don't wait for motivation to begin to see results in your business. Motivation cannot be the driving force, but action, but grinding, but decision, and the decision of saying that I'm going to accomplish and achieve this no matter what. That is what brings results, not the motivation. One of the things that I know helps a lot of people and has helped me before is understanding or maybe even building a schedule of your moods throughout a day. And understand something. In the mornings, for example, for me as an example, that I could give of my personal life of even recording these videos, I understand that in the mornings, I tend to be more tired. And although most people have more energy, my surge of energy tends to come in the afternoon. The only issue for me is that the afternoon, I'm typically working in my 9 to 5 job. So what happens? I say, you know what? So then I'm going to have to do it at night. Although at night is not my peak of energy, it is not as low as the morning. So I understand the scheduling of my emotions and how I feel and how much energy I have. Because if I want to come into this and record the video, I need to feel first good. Although I know that I'm talking about motivation and all these things, there has to be a certain level of me that feels up to doing the video, even though most of me doesn't want to. Because the reality is that if I don't feel up to it, then it's going to portray in my videos, right? People could read that instantly. So for those who do produce videos, for those who are doing social media, understand that maybe there are times that you're gonna go into the video and maybe to that day isn't the day. Now that doesn't mean that you can't work on your business, right? Just because of the fact that some days I'm like, you know what, today's not the day to record, I say to myself, you know what, I'm gonna focus on something else instead. That I don't say, you know what, then I'm gonna just turn on the TV and sit down on my couch and do nothing. No, I sit down and still am productive nonetheless. So build a schedule around your mood. Understand that it is a non-negotiable checklist, because if you don't understand when is the peak time for you to record, if you don't understand what time is the best for you to record, then when it comes to the long term, you're going to struggle with the motivation aspect of things. Again, motivation can't be the core of it, but it certainly helps. So set yourself up so that motivation is an acting a force that could push you further instead of having to work against it consistently. Quick pause. If you are ready to begin to put in the work, to rely on cold, hard discipline instead of feeling motivated every single time, hit the subscribe button, because here we understand that we must execute regardless of how we feel, and we must show up no matter how much we don't want to. We understand that action comes first and motivation comes after. So again, hit the subscribe button. I know maybe you've watched some of my videos, but it doesn't affect you to hit the subscribe button, and it helps me so much. So I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and let's get back to it. Now, let me give you a quick tip of something I've done in the past outside of understanding your emotional aspect of things, as we were talking before, throughout the day, throughout your week, and what days is better and what time is better. The 5-minute rule is something I tend to apply in my personal life. When it comes to doing these things and running my business, I have to apply this rule consistently. And you need to commit to doing the task for just 5 minutes. You will almost always keep going if you simply start. Because the reality is that in the moment you don't want to, but once you start and the trigger begins to happen where you're like, oh right, I have to get this done. Oh, this is easier than I thought. Or when you really begin to do it, you're like, I'm already doing it. Let's just continue. That begins to happen. And many times I have sat down here, I have started videos, I have struggled to even do an introduction to my videos. And after time, I begin to just flow, right? With a flow state. Let's put it that way. When you begin to start and doing the thing that you really didn't want to do, eventually it begins to follow the motivation to do it. So simply start. Give yourself a 5-minute rule. 5 minutes to finally feel like you want to do it, or 5 minutes to actually begin to do it and make the decision then. Because once you're there, in most cases, people continue instead of stopping. So commit to this 5-minute rule, commit to starting no matter what. And if you have to stop and decide that this is not the moment for it, then that's fine. Pivot to something else that maybe isn't as dreadful for you. So remember, showing up time after time And deciding to take action, no matter the motivation that you are feeling in that moment, is extremely important. Understanding your emotions in regards to the timing that you do things is very important. And committing to simply doing 5 minutes before you decide to say, no, I'm not doing this. Stop waiting to feel good. Do it anyway. Let's get to work. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, to give it a like, and to put in the comments below action first, motivation second, and maybe how you've been able to apply that in your personal life. Let's give each other tips and tricks of how we can grow further in our entrepreneurship journeys. And again, your path to freedom is here. We'll see you on the next one.